Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. How are you two gentlemen doing?
Great. Good.
Awesome. Happy Sunday. We actually were off last week, so we've had 2 weeks. Been busy though. I'm admittedly completely unprepared for this show, so I've not watched it.
Happy 25-hour day as well.
Yeah.
For people that get their hour back today.
So, I've not had a chance to watch any of the video. I watched some of, if you are in our Discord, Neuro does an excellent job of sort of recapping streams. So, you should join us if you're interested in that sort of thing. But I'm just going to kind of toss it to you two and kind of chime in because I honestly, I've read a little bit and I know there were some points you mentioned you wanted to talk about. So.
I'm kind of thinking of we just go over a general overview and then kind of go back and hit on the major things. So they're gonna next dev discussion is gonna talk about overgearing, as I said, twinking and I guess min-maxing and stuff like that. And then November 7th, the aesthetic sale is gonna swap out. November 7th to 8th from 6 a.m. to another 6 a.m. Pacific time. They're going to be doing the Extra Life live stream. The top 2 donors for every 4-hour segment will get a board game donated by a board game company that they're friends with. Get up to 30,000, and Steven shaves his beard on stream. It's not that long of a beard. It's not that big a sacrifice, but okay. He was like, "Oh my God, no! I mean, yes, but no." But it's not. Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm sure no more than 2 months later he could be exactly back to where he's at for a to shave it again for another charity event. They've got their Pathfinder campaign. The players can earn cash prizes that the company will match them on if they do certain things for their characters, up to $1,000 per player. That gets halved every time they die. Apparently, there's a high chance players will die. Viewers can resurrect people. They're probably going to work on how they're going to do it for how you can heal people and how you can damage them with donations as well. So, help or harm the players and screw them over in other ways. They talked about the creative director's letter and that the disclaimer that they might still push the dates based out, a little further based on what they discover in each test, and that they will actually stream the NDA stuff. So we players won't be able to, but they will stream the NDA stuff while those phases are going. So that's awfully nice of them. Then go over the creative director's letter and the studio updates. They go into the PvP video after that. They said the overall look of things is not being perfect is not a priority. Some animations, proportions, color, and stuff might be a little off, but that's not the focus of the video. And it's really good that they said that, because that was kind of the dominating thing when we watched the video, or at least my assertion is they got things to a pace and a scale that might actually be closer to the representative gameplay, much closer than what APOC was. But with the effects being so big and all over the place, it was really hard to actually tell what was going on in the battles, and it was kind of a big visual mess. So I'm glad that they did give us the disclaimer that it is not aesthetically final gameplay. They have a lot of effects work to do, but that they they actually have something that kind of looks like real gameplay. I would have loved to see Steven actually take damage and die, and
Well, we
maybe.
did see him take damage and die.
Well, he.
That's why he went invincible.
Yeah, and he cheated. So that's I'd like to see a little bit more of actual gameplay with that sort of thing, so we see what the real feel of things is. Not, oh, well, I won because I'm the invincible paladin and you can't kill me.
You would like to see Steven die more and more often. We get it. Okay.
And actually have maybe a couple people recording so they can swap cameras or do like a picture-in-picture of some other people or something. One of the things I really want to see, and it's hard to tell in that video, is just slow movements of the joints through a range of motion, because that's one of the things that I really want to see, makes or breaks the aesthetics for me on a rig, is do the hard things stay hard? Do the stretchy things stretch? Do the flexible things flex? Or is it just like old Unreal characters that are in the Z pose, and then everything stretches and skews in all directions because you're just taking a rig and pulling it into place, and all of the texture just kind of moves with it rather than
Well, it won't matter because you won't ever see it. It's too fast. You won't ever see that.
It's not that it's okay. It's a combination of, in the video it was a little too fast. It was also a little too far zoomed out, but it was also the whole chaos of what was going on. No, I think in closer and more subtle sorts of things, especially if people are showing off their characters' fashion styles and stuff like that, all of that's potentially going to matter a lot more.
Yeah, but that's way down the line. That's all polished stuff anyway. So
that's
doesn't
true.
matter what it looks like now.
So I have a question, since we're talking about combat, and you two have actually been in sort of the business. We're 4 years in. At what point normally do you, as a developer, as a group, start working on combat? Like, as you create a game and you put together your idea, you actually start the process of making the world. At what point do you actually start trying to nail down combat?
I think what a lot of modern startup MMOs are tending to do is they get some semblance of combat in that they can use to demonstrate some amount of gameplay, but they don't build the real combat system until they've actually got their netcode in a place that they're happy with. And that doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't matter if you're using Unity and you have to write an entire thing from scratch, or you're using Unreal, or even Lumberyard. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you would have to do, even though it's built in with AWS as your backend. I imagine there's a lot of custom work that has to go on with the netcode before you can really start on the high action fine-tuned stuff, because that's the stuff where if it doesn't work right, you're going to have rubber banding, you're going to have too many things on the screen that you're not able to process, that you're not able to send and receive that amount of information quickly enough. You're going to be hitting things and it's going to be a delay, or you think you're hitting, they think they're hitting, but you're not actually, because you're both kind of missing each other on the actual server side. So all of that sort of stuff, making sure it's clean. And on top of that, for what they're trying to do for the hybrid of action and tab targeting, they especially need to have the netcode as absolutely pristine, superb as possible, because there's a lot of places for just general breakage trying to do a hybrid system like that. I mean, any one system, not both of them at once, is already hard enough to pull off and get really smooth. So for the scope and scale of what they're doing, it makes sense to really make sure the netcode is in a good place before they jump on it. Just like what Chronicles was trying to do, and unfortunately it was a little too late for them, because they were, unfortunately, I guess, one foot in the grave at that point.
I think typically...
I'm just getting tired of seeing combat videos.
I was going to say, I'm going to get to that in a second. So typically, combat, I'd say, prior to 10 years ago, maybe even, probably prior to 10 years ago, we'd see combat later. But now I think with Unreal and some of the other packages that you can start your games with, that comes with combat, so you can start showing some form of combat very quickly, like almost out of the box, out of installing Unreal, or maybe even Unity. But yeah, that's the problem, is that we've had good looking combat, kind of, enough that it got Steven very excited into thinking, look how great the combat looks already, and we've only been doing this for a year. We're going to be out in 2 years because the combat looks great already, but we're not really here for the combat.
And then for them to even say that is going to be, which one was the BS? Because it was either that combat was good going into APOC and then they're going to completely redo it because APOC was wrong, or APOC was always not final gameplay and combat was never actually good. It was always being done as an initial test sort of thing. And so
I'm not even talking about APOC. I'm talking about right as soon as they started showing footage. As soon as they started footage, which was before the first PAX that they went to, that was the claim: is look, he was doing the same thing that he did in the video last time. We can gather a bunch of people. We're gonna go out and and that one, it was a quest, but we're gonna kind of complete these quick quests. But look how great the combat is, so we're going to be done quickly, because I've never seen combat handled this quickly before. And we're basically just saying there's more people, I guess, because this was not a raid, but what is it? It's party. Isn't there something in between party and raid, or is it just?
It's like party v party, group v group, raid v raid.
Yeah. So it wasn't like a huge raid, but larger groups in this fight. But
I'm just.
You're not here for the. We're not here for the combat.
I mean, I don't mind seeing some of it, but
of course,
it's the same thing every month. That they mentioned node tools.
For me, it's show me war machines.
No. Well, I mean, like in my mind,
if you're gonna show raid combat, PvP raid, show me the war machines, because that's the real gameplay.
I would rather, we developed tools. It sounds cool for the nodes to procedurally generate things and make things different. Okay, well, show us that. Like, even if it's just sort of gray box, not real detailed. I'm just kind of getting tired of hey, look at our combat.
Right.
I get you. And look at our map.
Anyways, I sort of sidetracked.
That's not a sidetrack. That's valid, because we're on the section where they showed us video, and the video was more combat. And what everybody really wants to know is what's going on with nodes. How do nodes work? What's that going to feel like? And I mean, I guess technically we saw how we're defending a castle, although I don't know that it was that interesting in terms of what they showed. And for me, the problem was not the particle effects. For me, the problem with that combat was just the speed of everything. Everybody was moving just way too fast for me to see what was going on. I think I would prefer combat to be a little slower than that. Because what I always say is I don't want combat. I like action combat, but I don't want it to be FPS speed.
Right.
And I want to have a little bit of time to do some strategy.
So, like, even a little slower than Landmark, then?
Landmark was probably a little fast, but I think this felt faster than Landmark to me.
Yeah, no, I'm saying for your ideal combat would be like a little slower than Landmark.
A little slower than Landmark, I think, but Pantheon is way too slow. Pantheon is like EQ slow is too slow.
Gotcha.
Well, I think that all depends on what you have to do, right? Like, how many different hotbar buttons do you have? If you
I
have,
don't care about hotbar.
well, I mean, if you have 20 different skills to choose from, yeah, fast is kind of gonna be a pain. Versus if
Don't
you have
care
5.
about hotbar. I care about what's moving across the. I care about the characters moving across the screen. And yeah, that is gonna then relay to if things are moving a little bit slower, then you have more time to focus on the hotbars. But again, I'm trying to feel like I'm in an anime or a film or a movie, and I don't want to just be going.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
Standing next to something and swinging just feels dumb.
What's it called? Time to kill? Is that the measurement?
Yeah.
and it's I want my time to kill to not be too fast, because I do want there to be some time to do some strategy stuff.
You're hard to please.
I am hard to please.
Sounds like you need to be a higher level than the content you're going into.
Right.
So, some of the other stuff they kind of talked about, and I feel like I need to rewatch it, that I got like bits and pieces of it. But it sounds like a castle will service 3 nodes economically nearby, and each one of those is where the collected taxes will have the caravan sent to. So in the lead up to a siege of a castle, you would, I guess, declare something related to that, and then you attack them. The one thing that was a little, I guess, disappointing to me was that it just seemed like your wagon with the horse came out, and then it was up to you to defend it, and then get smashed, and that's it. It didn't move anywhere. It didn't do anything defensible. You couldn't do anything defensible with it, especially when the person running things decides to go invincible, and then you really can't actually stop it being destroyed. So and again, I guess that goes back to the thing about how I feel like the demo as a demo of PvP was a little diluted, because if somebody's invincible, we don't really know how long things are supposed to be, how difficult things are supposed to be, what the actual challenge, what the actual success, like an even encounter, attackers versus defenders, what it should have really looked like.
But I think that we did, because, and I think we got a good, or I felt like I got a good assessment of combat, regardless of whether he was invincible, because Steven did get killed quickly before he went invincible, and probably quicker than I would like. And again, I would like there to be some amount of time to be able to strategize and synchronize with my teammates, so that I can be saying, oh, they're using this, so now I'm going to use this, versus I'm just pressing a bunch of buttons and running all over the place, which is what it felt like in there.
To be fair, he said he was going to run in first ahead of the crowd, and right at and in front of the choke point, he just gets nuked by everyone. Of course that's going to happen. Like, yes, you are going to die fast doing that. Use a little strategy, my guy.
Well,
you don't
I'm
have
curious.
to use your team.
I'm curious how, it sort of tying into how they talked about balancing. That they're not necessarily balancing for, archetype versus archetype. It's more in the group setting. Like, so when you combine that with like a caravan where basically you can just sign up, I'm imagining sort of World of Warcraft pickup groups in a caravan setting where there's not balanced individual fighting, and just how crazy that's going to end up being.
Crazy in what way?
Well,
as a just general clusterfuck.
Yeah, because the sense I got is they're going to balance more for group versus group PvP, which makes sense. But
it's not really group versus group. It's group.
Not, but that's what he's I mean, that's what you transcribed, Nero, right? Is that what he?
Yeah, I mean that's what they.
But it's objective-based PvP. That is.
But
Yeah,
that's the
the big
balancing.
thing that they were saying is that they aren't balancing class versus class, archetype versus archetype in a 1v1 scenario. Their intent is for groups to,
In
use their
objective,
abilities together.
it's groups in objective-based PvP.
Oh yeah, and objectives for sure.
But yeah,
It's not.
but no, that's my point is just that that I understand that, but if you have things like a Caravan where you can just sign up, I'm just wondering how crazy it's going to be because you're not necessarily going to always be part of a group that knows each other very well.
Yeah, how unreliable it's going to be versus how well organized the attack force is going to be.
Yeah.
I get you.
But again, it doesn't. Even the balance of group versus group doesn't matter as much as achieving your objective.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
not the
but
it's not the balance. I mean, there will be some balance there, but it's really about balancing towards achieving the objective or not.
But I guess
Straight
the other
up
thing I think
versus
about is
group.
how many times is the battle going to be objective versus objective or objective based PvP where you've got like something you're attacking or defending versus how much of it is I want to be in this territory and they want to be in this territory, or we're trying to mine this fancy node with a whole bunch of ore in it and they want a piece. So now, we're fighting with them while we're trying to, gather or get out with our materials. That's, I wonder where we're going to see more of the PvP encounters, or if it's really just going to be like, everybody being gentlemen because no one wants to lose materials, and it only comes down to like gankers and bounty hunters being the majority of PvP. And it might be some servers might be more like that. Some servers might be more open combat. Group sees another group, they just expect to fight sort of thing. I guess it'll be interesting to see how the sort of aggressiveness of the cultures of each server are going to play out.
And that's the thing. So Ombla is saying they assume class play in groups, but that's kind of my problem with the current speed that I saw there, is I didn't really see, or I couldn't figure out what the class play was. I just saw a bunch of people running around doing shit. But I wouldn't have been able to pick out a rogue or a healer or.
Yeah.
Did I see I saw Steven do lasso, but I think only because he called it out, and I think he said something like "come over here," and I saw him do the lasso ability that would bring somebody to him. But other than that,
and I should
did I
clarify.
see any healing? I just.
And I don't really. I personally don't care about balance. I'm not a PvPer. I don't really care if you don't do well against a different kind. It doesn't affect me. I'm just imagining the people that are the complaints that are, especially with such a PvP centric crowd. I'm an I don't know what we'll call it. I'm a DPS warrior and I can't. Why is this wizard able to kill me in 2 shots? That's not fair. I'm just imagining the fun scenarios that are going to come out on forums.
I think PvP balancing is going to be half of what the developers are working on post-release. Like exactly 50% of development is going to be going to that because it's going to be such a big deal, and there's going to be a lot.
What do you mean by big deal?
I think players are going to have a lot of conversations, complaints, discussions, raging tirades, etc., about all aspects of PvP. And just like in any other game where PvP is emphasized, it's basically this constant balancing act trying to get things
But that's
set up
because
in a way.
in other games they're PvP centric. They aren't objective based PvP centric, which is different. So Ashes is not PvP centric. It's PvX. And the PvP that they have is specifically objective based oriented. So they don't really care about 2 groups running together and just fighting against each other. That's not this game. This game is, in terms of the PvP, is sieges. So it's how you take down a castle. It's how you take down the node. It's how you take down a caravan. It's not about just two groups running against each other and saying which group wins against which group.
Right, and even with that, people are going to say blah blah blah. I spent
People
all this time building up a class, and I have this, that, and the other, and then I just everything's fine and good. Then all of a sudden, pew pew, I get countered by this class or that class or this or that or that, or
People
this
can complain
design
about
of level just invalidates me.
People can't complain about it. People complain about all kinds of stuff. There's going to be people complaining, but that's not what this game is. I mean, that's like I'll be complaining if there's too much what I consider ganking, but
half is
that's the
facetious.
game that this is. Yeah.
I don't expect it's going to be 50% of, but I feel like there's going to be some part of the team that's constantly dedicated to the PvP balancing act.
At least they also kind of answered. I've always tried in my head to figure out how are they going to balance 64 variations. But we found the answer to that.
I told
They're
you
not.
that answer. I told you that answer 3 weeks ago.
They're not, and that's a brilliant answer.
I've been telling you that, and we always knew that. I don't know where you guys. I don't know how the two of you can have been on this podcast for 4 years and not understood that. They've been saying that since the beginning.
Because
that's true.
I mean, I just don't understand then the reason of having 64, but
that's flavor.
Yeah, but anyways, they answered that question. We're not going to. Like, okay.
They've been saying the same thing for 4 years.
I've not. Everyone. I mean, it definitely from the very beginning was there's 8 kind of roles, the archetypes that
primary archetypes.
Yep, the primary archetypes. They're basically the roles that you're going to be playing. That doesn't mean that that archetype is specifically a DPS or specifically a support. That just means this is these are the sets of tools that you'll have available to you. And then you can augment that in different ways. And as they talked about, you can change how you're augmenting them. Your secondary archetype, there's going to be some way that you'll be able to change that. And we'll get to that when we get to that. There's a lot more on the notes here.
Cool.
So they showed off some of the Duneer assets. I'm not going to give you my full details on that, just that I noticed lots of kind of octagons, hexagons, rectangles, pentagons in a couple places for archways. Spider looking weird 2-story structures, but that's only looking at it from above because it's the arches for their overhangs that they have everywhere. They look very mercantile. I get a sense that they do a lot of trade and a lot of craft, and they're very proud of their work. The Tolkien-esque dwarves for sure.
Yeah. The Nakua are Polynesian.
Yeah. And I think that's actually maybe a little more interesting to me. But, I mean, they're all interesting. I like to see how they depict all of them.
Yeah.
Then into Alpha 1, they're working on how to design and environment approach. How to design environment and place. I wrote that funny. So they've set up new tools for better node management. So apparently what was going on before is a node would rise and fall, and maybe it would have some variation based on the race, but it would always be that same thing as it rose back the same way. What they have now they call to be the real node system. As an aside, I always feel like it's a funny thing when the word real is used. In jazz, you'd have your like 12 bar and 16 bar real book, which is actually a sort of fake book of all the tunes and everything, but everyone had one. So anyway, so the real system here is the one that is going to be used for the actual node placement and development. As a node rises and falls, as it gets influenced by cultures in different ways, it's actually going to break down and get rebuilt in a different way. So the placement of things, where things are, actually set up, the roads, the pathways, and all of that. So it's nice that they've got that going. I guess that's something I expected they would have been a little further along with at this point, but it's something that also takes a lot of work to really get right. And then once you've got it right, you can layer on all of the other systems. So this might have been something that has been months to years in the work, in work to get up to this point. But
I just wish, I don't understand why they don't show that.
See it now.
Yeah, that's really,
If
I
you've
guess.
got a real node system, let's see it.
Because, I mean, just to be completely blunt and transparent, we're starting to move into a territory where I question whether they can do what they say they can do. We have combat and we have beautiful art. They have great artists, and we see that every stream. But, it's been a year of art and combat.
Well, longer. It's been pretty much 4 years.
I was trying to not go all into that, but yes, it's been longer. But if they have a tool, because that is what everyone, at least I think anyone who's followed since the beginning. Now, I think a lot of the newer people are probably here more so for the PvP, that sort of system behind it. But behind that is the node system. So I just don't understand why not show. You say that it does this now, so. I mean, I don't care if it's not in full art assets. If it's just very blocky, whatever stuff, I would like to see it work.
Yeah,
but still, ultimately, my problem is not only have we not gotten Nodes 3, and it's 3.5 years after we were promised to get Nodes 3, which was just a video. Hey, here's a video of how the mechanics are supposed to work. Just a video demo of how it's supposed to work. And we've been waiting for that for over 3 years. And Steven's wanting to wait until he can show it well on the map and a decent rendition of the map. So, okay. But we were also supposed to get articles about each of the node types. And I think we've gotten 2 out of 4. And it's probably been almost a year. I think it's probably been a year since we've had the last article on nodes. And, writing should be pretty easy. Like, okay, you got to code some kind of demo or.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was just thinking in my head, wait a minute, you said we got the real nodes. You showed us something before that you said was nodes. So is that actually just a demo? I'm sitting here thinking in my head, like, did we actually see gameplay or did you just craft a little, 2-minute video in your world? Like, I don't know. Well, and then I don't claim to know any of this, but to also see that, hey, we're getting some of the buildings set. I feel like from a coding perspective, getting the randomization of, it's probably challenging, but he also mentioned that they don't have anything tied in with quests, with NPCs spawning. Right, Neuro? You have a huge list here. I cannot find where. I have it in a notepad, but I'm trying to find where you typed it because I feel like you said something like they now can start working towards tying in quests and all the changes that also occur, because that's a huge undertaking too.
Yeah, that's what they're working with now, trying to have the NPC and quest giver propagation work with the real node tool system. So they're claiming now they've got the land
so it's
placement development. Now they're working on the. So again, like I completely agree with you. If we've got the building part, even if you can only show like one race and one style of architecture and it's still not complete, a zoomed out view. Show us like a 3x3 grid kind of zoomed out of an area going from like whatever the smallest you're comfortable showing to whatever the largest you're comfortable showing, and then watch it like descend back down and build back up. And, show us a couple of those, a few passes of that, and, I think we'd be really happy to see that.
Well, again, we've seen some glimpses. So even at PAX, what was that? Was that 2017? The first time they went to PAX?
But that wasn't the real thing. That's what he just told us.
But No, but we could see it pop. It's not in real time, but there was something. It wasn't nothing.
But he just literally said that wasn't the real nodes.
What do you mean? What is real nodes?
So they referred to this as the real node system.
Yeah,
they actually verbatim said that phrase.
So what did they show us?
Exactly, I agree.
I'm just again landmark and the group of 4 people fighting a monster that wasn't actually real, that was controlled by another person. You can tell I'm getting frustrated, and that everything is nodes. That's why I am backer number 3 is because nodes. So I'm happy if they have developed this. Show us.
But how would they do? There's no way to really show you nodes.
No, I'm talking about the tool. The tool. I don't care about all the quests and NPCs. The tool they just mentioned, because to me, if I can see that gives me confidence that they're moving forward with nodes. To be able to build up and destroy an area and then build it back up and show how it does it differently a few times. Like, that's all we really want to see of it right now. Yeah, that's all.
Right, but that would be closer to a nodes 3, which they don't want to show in a gray box type form. They want to do that on the map, and there's again no way to really do that. I mean, it'd have to be some kind of simulation, because it takes days and weeks and months for that to.
Yeah, really they can speed it up in time lapse if they got dev tools. We've seen how long it takes for a building to build up using their animation. So, be cool to see that.
I'm just saying that still wouldn't be real. That wouldn't be real nodes.
That wouldn't be real nodes, but that would still be a simulation of how the new node system actually functions.
As you were saying earlier, Neuro, what they mean is that they're iterating on that and building it up. So it's not that they're just closer to, they have, like you said, better questing and NPC integration into it, so that it's not just the buildings. Because they've had quests and NPCs, they just haven't had those tied together with the nodes, and they're going more towards that at the moment. So
because I'm just still thinking of the volume of work, because then also having to create the amount of quests, the amount of different NPCs and interactions, some of which you might never see happen based on how the nodes go.
Not on the same server.
Well, I mean, theoretically, you could create a whole, you could spend a month with a whole quest series that never actually gets discovered.
Well, one of the servers will likely discover them.
But it's possible they don't. And that's all I'm saying. There's so much more to do. 4 years in.
But this is the expectation. When you're talking about this game, that's why it was very clear from the beginning, from anybody who is not a gamer, anybody who is in production, ever been in production, that they can't get all that done in 2 years. And we're seeing it even in 4 years, and then we have to hope they can get it done in 6 years. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Having
Only
quests,
time will tell.
Having quests not discovered in years means you get years to actually create them. So
that sounds like that
would be a Smedley thing.
No, it's what's the sci-fi game?
No, I could see the stories.
No Man's Sky. That's No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
No one will reach the center forever. You can't see all the no 2 players will ever run into each other or find each other. That'll never happen. There's so many worlds. Take forever.
So, going along, they showed some more of the assets. They did turn around of a character. Looked pretty good, actually. I like the hair and design of the character. They showed some of the level 1 through 10 Kalar leather and 10 to 20 Valoon. Look good. I'd like to see more. what was it? Steven used the phrase "heckin' bad butt," so we've got to make sure to use that to heckle him in the future. Heckin' bad butt. Gourd Contest. So, some physical entries, some digital entries. The grand prize winner seemed, I don't know, above and beyond the rules or whatever. They made the what is that? That long, stridey, muley thing with the snout, but they made it out of pumpkins. And then had
Dawn
their kid write.
Strider.
Yeah, and had their kid
Something.
writing on it. So that that won. But there were some pretty good entries.
I just want to back up to character models for a second to say that it would be nice to see some Nakua. I think we have seen Donir dwarves in game, but I don't think we have seen any Nakua, and I think that's because it's just generic dungeon kill dwarves that we've seen, probably, but that means that they're more European influenced.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'd like to start seeing more of the, a little more of the variations and such. Yeah, and so I think that gets us into the Q&A. So, they wanted to know if people will know who's participated in elections and when citizens come and go. And
I don't like this.
what was that?
Are you getting into the citizen?
Yeah.
And it's Day Strider and Moon Strider. Those are the two
Gotcha.
variations of the. I think Day Strider has the long snout. Anyway, keep going.
So the officials won't know who elected who. People won't know who actually voted for who, but they will be doing election notices using the mailing system. You can use the town board to look up active citizens, guild affiliations, societies they participate in,
So I don't like
religious
that part.
affiliations, and their property ownership type.
I hope they reconsider that.
Yeah, that's basically like we've posted the census, but at the same time, it means you don't really have any opportunity for secrecy and privacy. So that is, I agree with you that, and that might be something in the mayoral level. It's like, no, we've decided we respect everyone's privacy, so we don't actually publish or collect any of that information.
Yeah, I mean, I just think back, again, Illyria, had this whole subterfuge set up, had a separate county all set to go. Never got to play that out, but behind that was secrecy. No one knew, right? It's basically they're going to know everything about you if you belong to it. So I don't like that, especially the society part. I'd like to be able to be hidden in some instances of people not knowing what I'm doing. And this seems to just offer way too much information. Sure, know that I'm a member of a citizen. Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, I mean, you've pledged to be a citizen. People should know that you are. The mayor, should be aware of that.
Yeah.
I should not be able to go on and find digs and sort of double check. Are you lying to me? I shouldn't have that ability to know exactly what you.
Right.
I think that I think it's almost an requirement in a game where you want citizens to be relying on each other to benefit the city and metropolis and all that stuff, and which societies you're aiding and abetting, which religion that you belong to. But that being said, some kind of subterfuge thing where you can do some undercover stuff should be an option. There's still ways to do that, even when you're on public records. There's ways to be part of clandestine societies. I think that should just be an added thing. But yeah, just trying to figure out who you want to play with and who you want to aid. I think all of that information, having all of that information available is great.
I don't mind getting citizenship. I actually don't even mind if they know you own property. That's fine. But a lot of it just seems too detailed. We'll see. I mean, who knows?
Yeah. Again,
I mean,
it
if
could
I'm
be
living in
something
a
at the mayoral or like city council level to decide what actually does get displayed or not, and it could be something that's voted on by the citizenry.
But if I'm living in a city, I know what churches my neighbors belong to or not.
I
know what
don't.
religion. I know what religion, and I can find out. It's not difficult to find out what religion people are, or not. Although
You ask them. You don't
that
go up to a public record.
I could do that from public record. There's all kinds of ways that I could find that out. But that being said, there's also clandestine stuff too. So sure, there should be some ways to, you know, go in the shadows and do some subterfuge and hide some shit. Yeah, that's added gameplay to me. But
So, next one is about sieges. Will items such as gear and consumables offered in auction houses, player stalls, and personal shops be at risk of loss in a node siege? We get a double answer. The first is that stalls work differently. The player isn't present. You've hired an NPC to run it, and they're able to sell things out of your warehouse. Versus a player shop is you got a license to plop yourself down, put a little sign above your head, and sell goods and services out there on the street. So to that extent, if you get killed doing that, you're going to suffer the normal material loss death penalties. Otherwise, what they said, when a node gets sieged, the resources are lost or destroyed or whatever when the warehouse is attacked. I don't know if you lose all of them or a portion of them. Your completed items are safe. Your raw and processed materials are not. And that's something that I think is, I either absolutely hate it or there's a very specific reason for it. The reason why I absolutely hate it is because it punishes gatherers and processors and the people who trade and gather and process materials differentially over people that deal in completed items. So to me, that's garbage. So either completed items need to suffer like significant damage or, durability loss or, something to be comparable, or otherwise that materials aren't potentially compromised in that way. Now, the reason why I think it might be designed that way is that I believe the intent is when a battle is declared, and they said on there, as soon as there's a declaration of war, you can no longer get a caravan to transport your materials out of there to somewhere else. So your materials are kind of frozen. You can still walk them from point A to point B. And, if you die, you'll lose materials along the way. But you can't do like a large transport. So what I believe the intent is that whether it's like a martial law or civic defense sort of thing, the call is basically put out, oh crap, war is a brewing. Everybody, whatever materials and resources you have, we're going to buy them from you because we're going to use them to fortify our defenses and make our fling-in boulders and defensive projectiles and barricades and all that sort of stuff. And that the intent is that you use the materials that you have for a wartime effort and go back to normal life after that, which, going all the way back to Sun Tzu, like that's classic stuff, is that the attrition of war hurts the working class, the commoners first, and hits them hardest, and it takes a lot longer for it to hit the aristocracy and the people up top. So I imagine a little bit of that is kind of what the philosophy is. So I'm still not sure that I like that you lose materials in that way, but I understand if the emphasis is that you're supposed to contribute those materials and get some skill gains off of the wartime stuff that you're building up and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I wonder though if you can do personal caravans. So you'd be able to get stuff out on your mule.
Yeah, you could still do that.
And we wouldn't have the public city caravans, but I wonder about our personal.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sure if you got 20 of your buddies together and threw stuff on your mules and went as a group, I meant
not the mule, the actual caravan, the personal caravan that you get. That's in the things that we get.
Don't think that one deploys. I think it's anything outside of like the actual caravan system. So anything you can put in your pockets, anything you can put on your mount, your whatever you're going to use to carry stuff around, but all the way up to what would get signed and sealed as a contract transport of goods in a caravan format that would then go from point A to point B. Obviously, all of that stuff can change, but that's what it sounds like they're planning to do right now.
Well, I assume you can get stuff out of the warehouse. It says you can trade.
Yeah, you can still remove your items. It's just that you can't caravan your stuff to the next town over before the war that is going to wipe out your stash.
Okay. Because the other possibility is they just lock down the warehouse and say you can still sell and build stuff here, but you can't take it out.
Yeah, could be. So the next one was about how frequently you can change your secondary class, and they gave us a big, gigantic, we don't know. It could be anything from a timer-based cooldown, the cooldown in that you have to complete a quest to switch it each time, all the way up to what I actually would prefer, and I don't know if everyone here, what you guys think about it. I like the idea that you can switch on the fly, that every secondary archetype that you've invested in, you can switch to that, maybe not out in the field, but while you're at a camp or while you're, back at like a node's, town or city or something like that, to be able to switch to whatever makes sense. Like if you're going into a place where you're going to need fire magic, everybody can swap into a secondary archetype that's going to give them fire augmentation. If you're going into a big old war and you and your buddies are specifically planning to hold the front line, you all swap to a secondary of tank. And so you just, beef up, armor up, get yourselves as defensible as possible and try to hold. So that to me is like the most exciting sort of version of it, that at a safe location, you can swap on the fly between any of them that you've unlocked. And I'm fine if you have to do a quest to unlock each one of them. That's totally cool. I actually would appreciate that. And I'd appreciate they're different for everybody. But that's just my preference. What do you guys think? On the fly? Long timer?
I mean, I think on the fly is fine. I've never understood this idea that, as from a character perspective, I learned, I've spent time and I learned cleric skills, and now I've spent time and I've learned rogue skills, and now somehow I've magically completely forgot all of the skills I learned as a cleric. That doesn't make sense to me in a character perspective. The character has learned something, has experienced something. Why do they all of a sudden forget it just because they've learned something new? I understand, again, you talk about balancing and some other issues, but I
do that with languages. If I stop speaking a language, if I learn a new language and stop speaking a language for a while, I'm going to forget it over time.
Yeah, but we're talking about in this split second of I clicked a button.
Right, but you have suspension of disbelief and all kinds of stuff.
Not that much.
Not
for me.
I don't know what to tell you.
I have
I'm
a
gonna
pretty dumb.
say,
I have a pretty dumb
this-
character. If that's the case.
This isn't a game based on degradation after you've achieved progression. You're immortals. You're not aging. You're not gonna die and have to come back and start, anew. This isn't Chronicles of Valyria. So to be in line with that, I think it is fair that anything that you've achieved in any of the categories, you are able to kind of recall at a moment's notice. It could be something that's achieved by magical means. I mean, you're heroic people. I don't know if every NPC out there even has one archetype, and here you are walking around with 2+ of them. So
Diggs, I wouldn't mind wrapping what you just mentioned into the process. I mean, I could see that. If I did, I was able to specialize as a cleric or a secondary, whatever, and it's been 6 months as a player since I've used that skill, and now I want to go back to it. I could see you wrapping, a quest of some sort in. And saying, oh, well, it has been so long since you've done this, you have to sort of relearn a few things. In many ways, that would also help the not the character, but the player and sort of relearning, things that they haven't used for 6 months as well. But like a short tutorial quest. So, I mean, you could do that.
But it's like
I'm gonna
learning
say
an ability.
this.
You don't just click on a button and all of a sudden have a new ability either.
Mechanically, you're just going to give people the chore of jumping between each of their 8 subclasses, kicking over one orc outside the doors of one city, and then coming back in and swapping, and doing that once a day or once a week or once a month just to mechanically stave off the degradation. So I think just to avoid that chore, just don't do it.
Well, again, you're just not. It's kind of like switching switching out your weapons, right? There's lots of games where they don't want you switching weapons in the middle of combat. You have to wait until you come out of combat. Sometimes you have to leave the area and reach a place where you're able to do that, just because they don't want you swapping.
It's like they've never seen those action movies with those, knockdown, drag out fights where, the main swords get shattered or knocked off the side of the cliff, and then they go to their short swords and they got this and that, and then they've got their boot knife, and they've got, something on their big old gauntlets, and they're just punching each other or whatever. Like, I don't like the idea that you should be forced to just the one weapon, but
and that's
it depends on the game.
Part of it is fiction and part of it is the game, right? So there's rules to games, and the rules may be in some ways arbitrary, but the rules are there for whatever reason because the game designer wants those rules to be in place. It's just that this is also tied into fiction and role playing. It's not a meow.
And Riptide says
It's definitely a game.
Choices should have consequences, and I agree. I'm not saying my primary class is a cleric and I should be able to switch my primary class to rogue, but I'm more so for the secondary skills, those augments. I think as you progressively learn them over time, it should not be hard at all to switch between them. So.
But I think we don't know the mechanism for switching back. So
Yeah, no, they don't even know yet, so that one's up in the air.
Yeah. So I think the more pertinent issue is not whether you have access to a variety. It's how long does it take you to regain if you go from secondary cleric to secondary rogue and then switch back to secondary cleric. Are you starting from scratch again?
No, you're not going to start from scratch, but I can see what you mean about a degradation, or I could see there being like a finite pool of secondary augment that you get, and if you have invested in a couple of different secondary archetypes, you're not going to be able to get as much out of them as if you just put all the points in one. So there's so many ways they could go to balance it in different ways to, either punish people for mixing it up or, reward them for taking on every one of them and maxing them out, or however it would work. So that'll be up to them. I think it'll be months to years before they actually know what they're going to do with that.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting close to the end on time here, so I think we can maybe speed round the rest, and we can talk about the. Let's see. Steven plays a caster or a healer tank. Jeffrey Bard normally plays a bard. He
Or a
went to Bard.
druid.
Yeah, he went to Bard College as well, so he's a bard playing a bard. He went to Bard. Hilarious. It is.
And
It is.
sings as well.
And he sings as well. It is genuinely funny. Like that I appreciated quite a bit. He's a cool guy too. I got to meet him a few times during the EverQuest Next and all of that sort of stuff. Let's see.
Was he working on EverQuest Next, or did you just?
I
see him
believe he
working on something else?
was. I believe he was on EQ Next Landmark. He was, if I'm not mistaken, the glue or the poor guy in between the Smedley versus Georgeson for what the game's going to be and how it goes. But I honestly am not certain. You know, I wasn't there at the office. I've heard rumors and talk from people and stuff, but
Yeah.
I believe he was the lead producer there. So,
Okay.
you know, good experience to have going into this for sure. Will a guild be able to relocate or respec their guild points? And that one, they said they want more permanence. They don't want people to be able to D-rank and re-rank. They don't want people to be able to change their specialization. I appreciate that. If you're a guild that's investing in something and you want to be known for it and that's your thing, you stick with it. The one kind of thing is if the pendulum swings back and all of that time and effort you put into it, the things you invested in are now garbage because they were overpowered before and they just divested, you know, all of your points. Well, I could see doing that. Maybe if, you know, they've just completely screwed up an entire religion's build or something that they might let you respec or something. But short of that, I like the idea that things are permanent, that you're known for something. This is what you do. You know, if you're a leather worker, you join this guild because they have put every last point into leather crafting, leather gathering, leather processing. And if leather is your thing, boy, you better join them. If that's what you wear, you better buy from them. Like that's the level of specificity I hope to see. Like your you know, Wookiee crafter out in the middle of the desert in Star Wars Galaxies who's got equipment that's got all plus weapon crafting on, and they've got all the weapon crafting bonuses. And it's like, yeah, you know, you come to me if you want the best stuff. Let's see, going down, they said about my question about hair and beard disappearance. Helmets will be flagged as removing facial hair or not, and potentially hair on top as well. So if you got a helmet with a chin strap and you've got a nice beard, expect your beard to go away, I guess. They could still do like a matted down version, so there's like something kind of bunched up that's like your default under the helmet sort of thing, but I want to say New World does that. I can't remember from the last time I played, but it's a nice sort of thing to be able to keep like the masses of hair that you wear on your body. Let's see. Dice slots per item. So you're only going to be able to change one color category on the item. It's not like if it's got gold trim and on like a red robe or something, I'm pretty sure it's going to change the red, and it might change the gold trim to a different metal to match it. But you're not going to be able to change the red to green and then like the gold to black or platinum or whatever, all willy-nilly. It's going to be whatever sorts of things get applied by the die. So you're not going to have total control over the die, and I think that's probably a good idea, just so that way there's less draw call and aesthetic sort of things that need to be passed back and forth between every player on the screen at all moments. Hitboxes, are they going to be standardized? Or are they different per race? That is something I want to talk about on the next episode, because there's so many ways to go with that. And yeah, I want to talk about that next episode. We don't have enough time for that. Will the Underrealm be contiguous or consisting of pocketed areas? Both. As the node progresses and declines, there'll be more pockets. There'll be more contiguous sections of pockets. Will there be something going all underneath throughout the entirety of the world? No. It seems like nodes themselves are maybe going to have boundaries, and there might be some nodes where you have a little bit of flow through in some ways, but by and large, there's going to be various barricades, chasms, or impassable walls, or other sorts of things where they won't all be interconnected. So the Underrealm, it will have a lot of traversability, and it will generate differently. So that'll be very interesting for players to learn and then have it change on them over time. Combat pets. So the combat pets are not derived by the primary archetype that you've chosen. They are, in fact, based on the type of pet. And so there are pets that are more specific to different elements of the Trinity. So I expect that players that do more solo stuff or small group stuff that are going to focus on having combat pets, and this isn't like your class pets. This is just combat pets in general that animal husbandry people can get you hooked up with. They'll have different sort of properties to them to be able to help you out in different ways. And so that's a nice sort of feature to be able to have. It seems like something that's going to be more like a mid-late game sort of thing, or the ones that you'll be able to afford early on will probably get kicked over pretty easy, so you'll have to be careful with how you use them.
Feels like a mercenary system from EverQuest.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's kind of nice to see how that's gonna, that's gonna be a thing, and how it's gonna play out is gonna be interesting. There's also gonna be rarity, and the more rare the combat pet is, the higher quality its attributes and abilities will be. So that's probably going to be a big thing. The finding and trading and taming and
hopefully breeding
stuff. Big old fancy pets.
Hopefully breeding. That would be...
Yeah. Well, it
I'm
is
curious.
Animal husbandry, so I'd imagine there is breeding.
So I'm curious how that works, the idea of combat pet being separate from a class pet. So if you have a character that has a class pet, do you get to have both a class pet and a combat pet?
I would imagine so, yeah.
Together? Like at the same time as your
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the class one's derived from like a spell that you've cast versus the basic pet is an animal that's trained and is loyal to you. Hypothetically, you could have more than one animal pet, but I don't know if they want that. They're probably just going to limit to one per player. I guess the one thing I hope is that I'll be able to throw things on my pet's back and send it back to town to sell stuff for me, like in Torchlight, because that was one of the best pet systems in any game ever. I loved it so much. Just throw it on your pet, they go off running, they come back a few minutes later. Oh, and here's the potions you needed too. So good. So damn good. I love that design. Last one here. That was about the board games. Extra Life Charity Marathon number 4. They have raised $56,000 over the past 3 years, and that's the end of their dev stream. That's my notes.
Well, cool.
I guess in the time it took to go through it, you could have just watched the dev stream. And you might want to watch that too, but I found that helping.
Definitely want to watch it too.
It helps me to kind of take the notes and really like suss out all of the major details and all of the big stuff. Because if you're just listening for an hour, like they talk about a lot of stuff, and can be easy to kind of miss some of the details and have things fall through the cracks as they're just going on, and while you're looking at the visuals and listening and all that. Yeah, so Yeah, it's good stuff. Thank you all very much for coming.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about before we wrap up?
No, we
Yeah.
can wait until next time.
All right. I figured it was getting kind of late. I didn't want to just walk us off here if there's something else you wanted to
My
cover.
my takeaway from that is we have combat, and we're gonna probably push our dates later.
I mean, that
I wanna see nodes.
it's always a case of we're probably going to push, if it's any game, but especially an MMORPG, it's always we're probably going to push dates back later.
These things happen. Anyway, good stuff.
And we're gonna stream, and you can't. Nanner. All right.
Yeah, well, they're gonna do that. They're gonna do that.
All right.
It's fine.
Well, thank you for watching, everyone. We will be back. I think we're gonna actually talk about Pantheon again Sunday, correct? Yeah. So
Yeah, that would make sense.
yeah. So we will.
And Joppa, if you're watching, you're welcome to join us.
Yeah, we'll see if we'll.
You might have scared him away.
To join us again.
All right. Everyone have a good week, and yeah. So we will see you in a week.
See you
Bye.
later. Have a good one, folks. Stay safe. Go vote.
Yes. Go vote.